There are moments in life when you realize you've been performing without an audience, smiling in the right places, saying the right words, living the right way, but deep down, something feels absent. It's not that no one's watching you. It's that no one is really seeing you. And over time, this lack of acknowledgement becomes a silent mirror, reflecting not the truth of who you are, but the edited version you've learned to present. Carl Jung spoke about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we suppress or hide. What's important to understand is that shadows aren't always born from shame. They're often born from neglect. If no one clapped when you succeeded, you learned to dim your joy. If no one comforted you when you struggled, you taught yourself to swallow the pain. Bit by bit, the truest parts of you drift into the background. But here's the twist. The mirror may be silent, yet it's still there. The hidden parts of you are not gone. They're simply waiting for recognition. Healing begins when you choose to turn toward those unseen pieces and offer them the gaze they've always deserved. You don't need anyone else to do it for you. You can be the witness. Start by noticing when you edit yourself. Do you downplay your happiness so you won't be too much? Do you avoid sharing your sadness so you won't be too heavy? These are moments when your shadow is calling. Pause, breathe, and tell yourself, out loud if you can, I see you. Try keeping a small notebook and jot down the times you felt unseen during the day. Not to dwell, but to train yourself to notice. Over time, you'll start catching those moments sooner, and instead of hiding, you'll let your full expression come through. The silent mirror will always exist, but you can choose to step closer, look at your reflection without filters, and acknowledge every angle. You're not too much. You're not invisible. You are here, and you're allowed to take up space. Loneliness doesn't always feel like emptiness. Sometimes it feels like standing in the middle of a crowd and still carrying a quiet ache, the whisper that says, I don't belong here. Many people carry this subtle hum beneath their daily lives, believing they must change themselves in order to be accepted. Yet Jung reminds us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, isn't about fitting in. It's about integrating what we once rejected within ourselves. Think of your inner world as a village. In that village lives every version of you. The curious child, the shy teenager, the angry protector, the joyful dreamer. For years, you may have exiled some of them. Maybe you told the shy one to stay silent. Maybe you buried the dreamer because they seemed unrealistic. Maybe you banished the angry protector because they scared people. But here's the truth. Your village cannot thrive if parts of it are abandoned. When Jung spoke of the self as both the center and the circumference, he was describing this exact reality. You are not meant to live as only one fragment of yourself. Healing is not about creating a brand new identity, but about welcoming everyone back into the circle, no matter how awkward, fragile, or strange they may feel. You can practice this by literally imagining your inner village. Close your eyes and picture a fire burning in the center of a circle. Now see the parts of you gathering around it. At first, some may hide in the shadows, arms crossed, unwilling to join. That's okay. Just keep the fire lit. Keep the space warm. Keep repeating the words, you belong here. Belonging begins when you stop abandoning yourself. It begins when you return to the places inside you that you once deserted for the sake of approval. And as you bring those parts home, something powerful happens. The loneliness begins to fade. You realize that you were never truly an outsider. You just needed to remember the village within. Comment I belong if this message resonates with you. For many, life feels like walking on eggshells. A smile on the surface, but inside, tension, always bracing for the next outburst, the next loss, the next disaster. You may not even realize how deeply your body is holding this posture of defense because it has become your normal. But what your nervous system never learned was the taste of safety. Jung once said that neurosis is a substitute for legitimate suffering. What he meant is this: when we're not allowed to process our pain, the body creates patterns of protection. Muscles lock, breath shortens, the heart races at shadows. It is not weakness, it is survival. But surviving is not the same as living. To heal, we must teach the body a new language. Safety is not a concept the mind can simply declare. It must be felt, practiced, repeated until the body believes it. That begins with presence. In this moment, not yesterday's fear, not tomorrow's anxiety, but here now. Place your hand over your chest and feel your heart. Whisper to yourself, right now, I am safe. Not forever, not always, just here in this breath. You can create rituals of safety. Brew a cup of tea at the same time each evening. Sit in a chair that becomes your sanctuary. Wrap yourself in a blanket and rock gently. These repetitions are not trivial. They are rhythms, and rhythm teaches the nervous system trust, just like the steady beat of a mother's heart once did. Active imagination can help too. Close your eyes and picture your younger self, trembling, hiding, unsure. Instead of demanding strength, kneel down in your mind's eye and whisper, I will not leave you. You are safe with me now. Over time, that child begins to believe. Safety is not the absence of danger, but the presence of trust. Trust in yourself, in your body, in the moment. When you begin teaching your body this language, the armor softens, anxiety loosens, and slowly, life shifts from tiptoeing through shadows to walking in your own skin with ease. If you're ready to teach your body safety, comment, I am safe. Since childhood, many of us were trained to believe that love was conditional. Be quiet, be perfect, be helpful. Then you'll be accepted. Fail to meet those conditions, and you risk rejection. This constant striving creates a mask, what Jung called the persona. It is useful in society. We all need roles. But when the mask becomes a prison, when it silences the child who only wanted to be loved as they were, suffering begins. Think about how often you perform without realizing it. You laugh at jokes that don't touch you. You agree when you want to disagree. You excel, not because it brings joy, but because achievement feels like the only currency for love. Over time, the mask sticks to your skin, and you forget who you are underneath. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege cannot be claimed if your life is spent rehearsing roles that don't belong to you. Dropping the performance doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means releasing the illusion that worth must be earned. You are enough because you exist. A simple but radical practice is to speak this truth daily. I am enough. Say it not as a reward for achievement, but as a declaration of being. Write a letter from your inner child to your adult self. Let that voice remind you, I never needed to perform. I only needed to be loved. Those words can cut through decades of conditioning. Living without the mask is terrifying at first. It feels like standing on stage with no costume, no script, no shield. But with time, you realize that those who truly matter are not watching the performance. They are seeing you. And that is where real connection is born. To live as your authentic self is not arrogance. It is humility. It is the surrender to the truth that you don't need to be anyone else. The greatest act of courage is to stop pretending and allow the world to meet you as you are. If you believe you are enough, write those words in the comments below. There are wounds that never received the closure they deserved. Moments that replay in your mind, not because you want them to, but because they've held you hostage for years. Perhaps it was a parent who never protected you, a teacher who shamed you, a friend who abandoned you. The pain echoes, and part of you remains frozen in that scene, asking questions you never got a voice. Why didn't you love me? Why wasn't I enough? Jung understood that much of our suffering is inherited. The greatest burden a child must bear, he said, is the unlived life of the parents. Often, what hurt you wasn't about you at all. It was about the unresolved wounds of those who came before you. But knowing that doesn't erase the scars. Your inner child may still carry anger, grief, even guilt, because children, by nature, blame themselves. This is where forgiveness enters, not as a passive act, but as alchemy. Forgiveness is not saying it was okay. It is saying, I will not let this define me anymore. It is taking the energy trapped in resentment and transmuting it into freedom. It is choosing to live unshackled. One practice: write a letter you'll never send. Pour every raw word onto the page. The rage, the sorrow, the questions. When you finish, read it back, and then whisper, I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. Feel how those words shift the weight from your shoulders. But sometimes, the one you need to forgive is yourself. Forgive the child who thought pain was their fault. Forgive the teenager who acted out because love felt unreachable. Forgive the adult who repeated patterns because they didn't know another way. This is not weakness. This is reclamation. Forgiveness is rarely a single moment. It comes in waves, some days light, some days heavy. But each time you meet the memory with compassion instead of bitterness, you rewrite the story. You're not erasing what happened. You're remembering it differently. You're saying, despite it all, I am still here, still whole, still free. Forgiveness is freedom disguised as softness, and your inner child deserves nothing less. If you're ready to release the weight of the past, comment, I forgive.